Hi. Alright, so we're going to get started and hopefully more people will join. And of course, well, actually let me get this recording so that people can watch this after the fact. So we've got some people here. Let's get started. My name is Bracha Kopstick. I'm a registered dietitian located in Toronto. I work virtually though with clients, specifically adolescents, kids and teens and their parents. Although today's live is not going to be directed about kids per se, but more so yourself, whoever is listening. We are talking about meal planning without dieting. So first, let's get an idea of what is meal planning. So I've come up with 3 different types of meal planning. So first one, maybe starting from the least intensive, would be coming up with your meals for, say, a week. Is kind of the traditional way that we do it. So coming up with your list of meals, maybe snacks included as well. Then the second type would be that you actually prepare some of your foods, maybe bulk preparation of certain foods, maybe it's full meals. And then our third type of meal planning or preparation would be actually portioning out your meals for probably a full week or something, maybe for a shorter amount of time, but and maybe if you've been on Instagram or social media long enough, you can envision those pictures of the beautiful containers spread on the counter with the meals pre-portioned, sitting there, same food for every day of the week. So that would be probably the most intensive type of meal preparation, and we're going to kind of talk about each of these 3 throughout today's session. So, and of course, welcome everybody as you're joining. Feel free to ask questions and hopefully I can get to those either throughout or towards the end. So we've got pros and cons to meal planning. So pros would be to cut down on some of that mental labor during the week. You don't have to be thinking, oh, right, dinner's happening again today. I've got to make some food. What am I making? You've already got that clear list of what's being made, what you're going to be serving. So additionally, or similar to that, is that you're able to shop, you have all those ingredients on hand, and it's time to start cooking, you know what you're doing, you have it all there. And regarding, depending on how much preparation you're actually doing, there can be food that's just ready to go, ready to eat, and it really can cut down on some of that meal preparation during the week. The cons then would be that preparation time, that at a certain day of the week you are taking some time to actually think about what is going to be served and made and eaten. So, pros and cons of when is that mental labor going to happen. There's also the potential to get bored of your meals, especially if you are creating that spread of the same meals for the whole week. So you can get bored of those meals. But then more specifically to what we're talking about today is that meal planning, meal preparation potentially can be outsourcing the food that you're eating, removing that body cues, that hunger, that fullness, that decision right in the moment of, that intuitive eating thought of what am I eating now? What is my body in the mood of? So if we've done the meal planning, there's that potential of distancing from what your body is asking for or needing in the moment. And then there's also as well that feeling of limitation, feeling limited, feeling restricted by needing to stay to this plan, being limited to what you've decided at the beginning of the week. And that's where the dieting mindset comes in, when we are feeling restricted, when we are in a state of restriction, that results in a resultive binge or overeating, eating past fullness to make up for that restriction. And that's really what we want to avoid when we are doing, if we are doing meal planning, meal preparation, we still want to avoid that restrictive feeling. So how are we going to do that? So I have here 7 different things on how we can prevent feeling restricted, leading to that resultant binging. So our first one is probably to avoid that whole pre-portioning that I described before, where you've got the all those glass containers with the meals portioned out, and you take that either for breakfast, lunch, or whenever it is. So avoiding that, because when we have foods portioned out, that goes to that removes that trust that you're outsourcing. How much should I eat? It's not about your hunger, it's not about your fullness, it's about, oh, this is like the quote unquote right amount that I should be eating. And that just results in a lot of restriction, because you've predetermined how hungry you're going to be eating. Maybe you had a more stressful day. Maybe you've had you went to the gym, or your train stopped early and you had to walk extra to work, and all those things kind of affected your hunger. But because you've pre-portioned out what you're eating, that's all that you have available. So that's obviously going to affect your feelings of restriction. So potentially avoiding that option of meal preparation and meal planning. Or if you are kind of sold on it, if you find it really convenient and really helpful for your lifestyle, I would suggest to add more. So yes, you've got those glasses set up, you've got your portions in there, but allow yourself to add in more food. So adding in more snacks, adding in more sides. That again can remove that restriction, because you're not limiting yourself to that amount of food. So that's number 1. Second thing we can do is to include foods that we enjoy and foods that we find satisfying. So, because that's going to take away that restrictive feeling. So for example, if you are somebody who just for lunch loves eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, why would you not? Why would you then plan, say, rice and beans to take for lunch? Because you're going to be missing out on that sweetness from the jam. You have your carbs, you have your protein, but where's that sweetness? Where's that little bit of satisfaction that you've gotten used to eating for lunch? So putting food that is both nourishing and filling and also satisfying is going to be key to not feeling restricted when you are meal planning. Okay, so that was 2. So then our third one is so we had talked about one of the types of meal planning is preparing a bunch of foods for the week. So potentially what can be helpful, instead of making a full-on meal, would be to prepare components of the meal. So maybe you cut up a bunch of vegetables that can be used in various meals or recipes. Maybe preparing a number of grains, so having a big stock of, say, rice and a big thing of barley and a big thing of pasta can help you to remove some of that rigidity around the meal plan and can allow for some flexibility. So kind of mixing and matching depending on what feels right to you on the day. You know that you have food available and you can throw it all together because it's all ready to go. But there's less of that, I made this meal and this is what we're eating, because you kind of can mix and match from those various preparations that you made earlier. Or also what you can do is, what I find for a lot of people has been helpful, is to prepare for smaller chunks of time. So instead of taking Sunday and preparing from Sunday to Friday, or Sunday to Thursday, people preparing for only 2 or 3 days at a time makes it a lot less rigid, that you're not kind of so stuck to the food that you've prepared. there's less food that might go to waste, so you don't have to finish every single thing that you've made. There's less fatigue around what you've made. Like, you haven't gotten bored yet of the food, and you're not just like slogging through. Because you've only made for 2 or 3 days, there's still enjoyment around what you are eating, which can be really helpful around eating without feeling that boredom, that restriction, kind of like that diety feeling that can often come when eating feels like a chore or isn't enjoyable. Okay, number 4, for how to take the dieting out of meal planning, is to make it less of a plan and more of a guide, where you're not stuck on something specific. Because often what I find with people who are moving away from dieting is they've been told, this is exactly what you need to eat every single day. But at the same time, you don't want to be flying solo or, just free falling every night of what am I making for dinner, what am I making for lunch. So having a bit of a guide can be really helpful to know what you're making, either that entire week or even just day to day. So what I mean would be, or for an example, that would be, let's say on Monday, that you're going to make something with ground meat. That might be tacos, it might be meatloaf, it might be a meatball, it might not be ground meat, it might be ground turkey this week. So, allowing for flexibility, but also like a bit of a starting point. Maybe on Tuesday we have fish, maybe on Wednesday we have chicken. Again, fish doesn't have to be just salmon and potatoes. It could also be fish tacos made with fish sticks, or you could have fish sticks on their own, or maybe it's a tuna bagel. Build your own sandwich bar. So kind of like allowing for flexibility, allowing for a bit of a guideline though too, to give you some guidance on what you're going to be eating. Similar to that, but we're going to call this number 5, is to allow for flexibility. So we really want to be bringing in that flexibility. That's, if you've been here from the beginning, we're talking about avoiding getting stuck in that rut, avoiding falling into that rules around eating, which is very much a diety mindset that we want to avoid, because our bodies know what we want, our bodies know what they need, and we're really trying to fall into that, to allow for that, while also having a little bit of a framework to make it so that we're not starting from scratch every night. So allowing for flexibility and changing as needed. Maybe the chicken didn't thaw in time. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe your chronic illness is flaring. Maybe your boss kept you late. The kids had detention. There's so many reasons why our schedule doesn't go as planned. So having some flexibility built in to our meal planning is really, really key. So one of the things to help with that is to have some really quick, staple pantry item type meals that you can kind of turn to when needed. Some examples would be like grilled cheese sandwiches, scrambled eggs and toast, maybe pasta and canned beans, things like that you can throw together with like minimal energy, minimal thought, when the original meal plan doesn't kind of go as planned. So allowing for that flexibility around the meal plan, again, takes us away from that rigidity and that rules that often comes with the diety meal plans. Okay, so going forward we also mentioned that often what happens with meal plans is we feel like we're restricted, that we're limited to what is written on that list. So if that is the case, then we need to expand that list. We need to include snacks. We need to include desserts. We want to include non-nutritional, delicious foods that make us satisfied, that keep us enjoying what we're eating, that is maybe not what you would think of when you're creating your meal plan, but it's the food that you actually eat, and the food that is going to make you satisfied and can help you sticking to your meal preparation planning. So making sure to include those, because food isn't just about giving you energy and nutrition. It's about giving you enjoyment and satisfaction. So we really want to include all those other foods in there so that we're not getting stuck in that dieting mindset of this is what's on the list, this is what we eat, which, like I said, results in restrictive feelings and that result in binging. And then, of course, to allow for deviations. Allow yourself to drop it. If meal planning is not helping you, if meal preparation is not working for you, drop it. When diets and dieting depends on rules, they want you to, whoever creates a diet wants you to believe that you can't be trusted, you can't trust yourself, you can't trust your body, and you need to follow the rules of X, Y, and Z diet that you've decided to follow. And they want you, and they result in then feeling guilt and shame when the diet doesn't work, when you drop the diet's not going to work because it is restrictive and it's not what your body needs. So we want to step away from rules. We want to step away from something that's going to result in you overeating or in binging, and that will result in you feeling guilt and shame. So if meal planning is not working for you, you can either, find a way to make it work, or you can just let it go. But really the key for today was that by adding in flexibility, allowing changes to what you've planned, based on your energy, based on your hunger, based on your life circumstances, we're showing that you can be trusted. You know your body best. You know what you're experiencing. Your body knows what it needs. Your body can be trusted. You don't have to depend on these rules. We want to include food that is nourishing and satisfying. That can help you stick to your plan, but that's not the goal. The goal isn't to stick to the meal plan. Meal planning is really just a tool to help ensure that you are eating reliably throughout the day, that you've got some sort of variety in your meals and in the types of foods you're eating. But then again, it is just a tool, okay? So if it's not helping, if it's making you feel any guilt and shame for not, having the perfect meal plan or not following the meal plan properly, then that's not the tool for you. And especially if you find that your meal plan is causing you to restrict, if it's causing you to eat less than your body wants or body needs, then it's definitely not the meal plan for you. And adding in more food that you enjoy, adding in more food that is tasty and satisfying and filling and nourishing is what's going to be key to your meal planning without that diet culture. So that's what I've got here planned today. If anybody here has any questions or comments, I'd love to hear. And of course, this is going to be saved. So, you can comment below if you have any questions. You can come onto my Instagram, adolescent.nutritionist, with your questions. But thank you, everybody, for coming and joining, and I hope you found this helpful. Have a good night.